Hello and welcome to Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the documentary A Life on the Farm, directed by Oscar Harding. Wow, this is one of the strangest documentaries that you'll ever see. It's a documentary about found VHS video footage recorded by a farmer, Charles Carson. It's made by his grandson, and the documentary is about the footage. But I think it's also about the phenomenon of found VHS footage. This is a real thing. We've got many talking heads admiring the footage. This is a collection of individuals that do this for a hobby. Now, when I say this film is strange, I don't mean this in a good way. This is one of the most ridiculous documentaries that I think I've ever seen. Let's take the footage at face value to start with. Charles Carson was definitely eccentric, possibly mentally unwell. Initially, this feels like someone that's enjoying the novelty of being able to record themselves, plug the camera into the TV and watch themselves. And I can remember this. I'm old enough to remember doing exactly this. And at one level, there's nothing special about this footage. There must be a lot of footage around like this. Part of the enjoyment of VHS, I think, is the aesthetic of the recordings, the grainy, unstable image, the flickering at the edges, the white static lines. I can really appreciate this, having kind of lived through it. Any footage that has these qualities could be admired, however. Now, I really like the idea of making artwork from found footage that wasn't necessarily originally made as art. And I can appreciate that there's a community of kind of VHS nerds that really enjoy this kind of footage as a hobby. However, the silly film that Charles Carson shoots with a couple of cardboard skeletons really doesn't stand out. The one thing that does make it stand out is his eccentricity. And this is where I started to feel a little bit uncomfortable. The eccentricities are things that aren't really appropriate. Filming the dead body of his mother for several days after she died, putting her in various different situations. He also talks about the loss of his parents, his wife and his cat with an unsettling detachment. It's definitely quirky, but I also found it quite tasteless. Perhaps I'm just getting old. The reviews for this film have generally been positive. The Guardian described it as delightful and a moving and surreal portrait of one man's quiet rural existence. It also calls Charles Carson a talented outsider artist. I just can't be positive about this documentary in this way. I am a believer in the principle that everything is art, but it's definitely the case that some art is more art than others. To be fair to the documentary, it does recognise that there may be an issue. There is a psychologist that talks about possible mental health problems that Charles may have been suffering. But the whole thing has a tone of dark humour. So the psychological analysis that is here feels kind of glossed over in the whole childish, jokey attitude. On some level, you could believe that the whole thing is a spoof, but it's not. It's definitely a real thing. The really interesting bit of the film is the people that enjoy the footage so much and how they over-interpret what it's about. That's almost comical. Overall, this is one of the most unusual films that you'll ever see. So if that floats your boat, you may well really like it. However, I found this film at best ridiculous and at worst in really bad taste, almost exploiting someone with potentially serious mental health issues. So I definitely wouldn't recommend it overall. Thanks for watching. See you next time.